What's up, YouTube? Welcome to ExceedTheHype.com. It's your boy Lucrecio coming at you with another video. Alright, so this video is for everybody who's watching the finals believing that the Cavaliers are going to win, but you're not quite sure how or why. Well, this video is for you, and this is the 10 reasons the Cavaliers will win the NBA championship and beat the Golden State Warriors. Alright, so reason number 10 is bench depth for Golden State. So Golden State got rid of Barbosa, they got rid of Bogut, they got rid of Versatility, they got rid of Barnes, all to sign Kevin Durant. Now, while this was a good move because Kevin Durant is obviously a great player and probably the second best in the league, depending on if you like him or Kawhi Leonard or Steph Curry or whatever the case may be. But that's a lot of depth to get rid of for one player. And the guys that they signed were Patrick McCaw, Ian Clark, even though I believe he was there last year as well, and a couple other guys, a couple other big guys that they got either through free agency or the draft. They got JaVale McGee as well. They got Zaza Pachulia to replace Bogut. Now, personally, from watching the Warriors last year, as well as this year, but mainly last year, when they won 73 games, they won it because of their bench depth. Barbosa was a big factor in that. So one thing you noticed last year, the starters would get out there, they would create a big lead. The bench would come in. In some cases, they would extend the lead. And most of the time, Steph, Clay, Draymond, their key players would have a lot of time to kind of sit on the bench and watch the game, watch the action. A lot of the fourth quarter minutes, the main stars of that team spent on the bench watching because they were blowouts. So a lot of this was because of their bench. Even in the first two games last year of the NBA Finals, you noticed that Tyronn Lue was having his team do a lot of trapping. Steph Curry, of Klay Thompson, a whole lot of trapping beyond the arc to get the balls out of their hands very quickly. Now, when that happened, I noticed that the Cavs played those guys pretty good. The problem started in the first two games when Steve Kerr went to his bench, brought in the reserves. Barbosa would come out and score very quickly and very easily. And that was a huge factor. Him, Sean Livingston, and Golden State's bench would come out and really put a pounding on Cleveland's bench. And that's why they got up to such a big leads the first two games of last year's finals. All right. I don't believe their bench with Clark and McCaw and the rest of those guys that they have there are going to be able to do that this year. So that's one reason I think Cleveland will beat them. I think Cleveland will do a good job on the starters and their bench. The Cleveland bench this year is better in my opinion. All right, so moving on to reason number 9. Reason number 9 is Cleveland's defensive versatility and length. Now, what do I mean by this? The key to beating the Golden State Warriors is defensive versatility. You need not one, not two. You need a couple of guys who are between like 6'5" and 6'8", 6'9", who can switch everything. So a lot of times Golden State plays 5 like wing players. Whether it's Draymond, this year will be Draymond, Kevin Durant, Iguodala, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry. So they'll have those 5. The defense will need to be able to switch all 5 positions when there's a lineup like that in it. And Cleveland can do that. So Cleveland has a couple players who fit this mold. They have Richard Jefferson on the bench, Korver on the bench, even though I'm not sure how much he's going to play in the finals. They have Shumpert, who's a defensive specialist, J.R. Smith, who's also another defensive specialist now, and maybe even Derek Williams. I don't know exactly why he's there. I thought he was to play this year. It could be maybe he's going to spend the summer training and he's going to be for next year. But he's there now, and he fits that mold. And also LeBron himself, who, you know, is obviously a great defender. I think they're going to spend a lot of time switching everything. They're going to spend a lot of time trapping. They're going to spend a lot of time possibly even swarming like LeBron used to do on the Miami Heat. I think they could bring some of those same concepts as far as those traps and getting all those strips and playing the passing lane and all that stuff. covering all that space. I think they have the ability to do that with this team. Also, when we talk about defensive versatility and length, who else are we talking about? We're talking about Tristan Thompson. Tristan Thompson is a huge key in the series because of his ability to guard whatever the big that Golden State is going to play, straight on down to Steph Curry. When they switch on Steph Curry, he can guard him. Last year, he was yelling at his team not to help, not to bring another defender. He got Steph Curry by himself. He even got a block on him with Steph Curry in the corner. So that defensive versatility that the Cavs have, they have bodies who fit that category, and that's going to be a big reason why they're going to be able to beat the Warriors this year. Okay, moving on. Reason number 8. Mike Brown is coaching and not Steve Kerr. Now, this may sound weird. A lot of people think Golden State coached themselves. Luke Walton last year coached them at the beginning of the season. They won a crap load of games. A lot of people think Steve Kerr has a lot of assistants that have a lot to do with how great their defense plays. All that is fine and dandy. However, Steve Kerr is a very innovative figure in the NBA. He took Golden State from being an okay team that had a rivalry with the Clippers, literally left the Clippers completely in the dust, and became the best team as far as the regular season is concerned in the NBA. And that's another reason why they're not going to be able to pull it out this year. Mike Brown may have a Coach of the Year award. He may have coached All-Star games. He may have coached Cleveland to 260 plus win seasons back when he had LeBron. However, in my personal opinion, Mike Brown is not a great coach. We've seen it over and over again how he failed when he was coaching LeBron to make necessary adjustments in that final series. He had a game plan going into the series. When that game plan failed, that was it. And also offensively, I still have bad dreams that 08-09 season in the playoffs when they played the Magic, when I believe could have been the first championship for Mr. James, not only did not win, they got beat by the Orlando Magic in the Eastern Conference Finals, and the whole series was basically LeBron at the top of the key creating everything. There was no offensive system. It wasn't a lot of wasn't a lot of movement, player movement. It was basically like people watching LeBron and him having to create everything. There was one point, I think in the fourth quarter of one of the games that they actually won, where it was 33 points or something like that in a row that he had either scored or created. And that was the last 30-something points of the game or something like that. I have to check that later. But that's terrible. That's a sign of good coaching. And then at the time, there was a lot of stuff in the newspapers and, in the media or whatever about how Cleveland's ownership and management were wondering what kind of offense was Cleveland doing. Basically, Mike Brown had LeBron at the nail and just trying to create everything. It was terrible. Basically, they lost. In my opinion, a big factor of them losing was Mike Brown. So that's another reason why, without Steve Kerr there to make the necessary in-game adjustments, Golden State will not be able to win with Mike Brown coaching. Reason number 7. If you've watched this whole year, the Cavs have put an emphasis on scoring. They've kind of not necessarily the playoffs, but the playoffs as well, but not necessarily the playoffs, but this whole regular season. They put all the emphasis on scoring in bunches and scoring a lot of points. Their defense has suffered, but they've scored a lot of points this whole season. I believe it was a game plan just to get used to being able to outscore your opponent. Just to get your team used to having to score 120 points to get a win. 130 points like they just did in the Eastern Conference Finals. Having to score these ridiculously high amounts of points and winning games. And that's what they've done the whole season. And in my opinion, it's to ramp up to have enough to get used to scoring that much and to also have the firepower available to score that much versus a team that has, so much firepower. I think that strategy has started at the beginning of the year and is going to come in handy in the finals. Reason number 6. The Cavaliers' defense has improved throughout the playoffs. Now, I will be one to tell you this season the Cavs defense has not been good. Everybody's saying it is the big story, and it's true. Like the defense, they've basically sometimes it looks like a pickup game when watching the Cavaliers, just because the emphasis is not on defense. There was a report by Brian Windhorst earlier this year that there were talks with certain influential players and the coaching staff about removing the complexity out of their defense. Now, if you know anything about NBA defenses, they're all complex. Everybody has assignments. They have areas they need to cover. They have assignments when you switch, you go here, you have to rotate here. It's so much stuff going on a court that you may not pick up when watching, but it's complicated. And their whole thing was, in order to save energy and focus more on scoring, we're going to take the complexities out of our defense to conserve our energy and also score more points. In doing that, it created this narrative in the media that they're so horrible defensively, which technically they were, but I believe it was all for a reason. Now, in the playoffs, the first series, still bad versus Indiana, still bad defensively. Second series, versus the Raptors, a little bit better. They started the gimmicky stuff. They started the doubling DeMar DeRozan in the post and things of that nature. Quick doubles coming from different areas, all that type of stuff. They started that. They were executing that type of stuff. And then when we got to the Boston series, especially game 2, game 1 as well, but especially game 2, it wasn't just that they kicked Boston's butt and they scored a lot of points on Boston. It's also they defended the crap out of Boston in that second game. Their defense was good. And to me, it's just their defense is building, getting stronger as the year goes by. So ideally, it'll peak in the finals, which would be the best case scenario. So ultimately, we'll see if that's how it works. All right, moving on to reason number 5. The Cavaliers are entering the finals rested and healthy. Now, that may sound weird because Golden State is also entering the finals rested and healthy. So it's like, well, what are you talking about, everybody? Well, it's part of the Cleveland Cavaliers championship formula. I feel, and this is going to be weird, I'm going to say some weird stuff here, but this is how I look at how the Cavs perform in the finals. I feel like LeBron has about 3 or 4 games at that ridiculously high level. We saw it 2 years ago in the final series where he had, basically about 3-4 just ridiculously good games. Now, it was bad field goal percentages because he was taking all the shots and things of that nature, which you don't like to play like that. But he was playing at a ridiculously high level. I call it like Super Saiyan, like when okay, people may not watch Dragon Ball Z, but if you watch Dragon Ball Z and you watch LeBron, you know what I mean when he goes Super Saiyan like he did versus Boston in 2012. Anyway, you leave that aside. But he has about 3 or 4 of those games left at this point in the season. The reason why he still has that is because they sweep so much in the playoffs. They swept round 1, 2, and almost swept 3, round 3. So that's not a whole lot of basketball in the playoff months. He also sat out 8 games, and last year he sat out 7 games during the regular season. So because of some of this progressive resting to kind of counteract, well, not progressive resting, but strategic resting throughout the year to kind of counteract some of that progressive fatigue that comes along with playing such a long season, it gives some of that. He still has some energy to play at that level in the finals if he needs to go up to that level of basketball, which is typically above a level anybody else can go. All right, so the fact that he's still healthy, the fact that Kyrie's healthy, even though he tweaked his ankle a little bit, but he looks all right. The fact that Kevin Love's ready and healthy and things of that nature, that puts the Cavs at full strength. And I think the Cavs at full strength is still stronger because they have a player that's so that's elevated above anybody else on the court. So I think that still gives them an advantage. All right. So reason number 4, I think as the game gets simpler, once the game plans begin to fail in the finals, once everything starts to go to ISO or just pick and roll, however, the simpler the game gets, it benefits the Cavs. Why? Because the Cavs have the best ISO player in the league in Kyrie Irving. All right, Kyrie Irving is also pretty impossible to guard when coming off of a screen. And I'll talk about this more in a second. But the simpler the game gets, the less complicated the game gets, the more it benefits the Cavaliers. If you can keep it a bunch of backdoor cuts and a bunch of ball movement and cross court, if you keep it the Warrior style, which is, in my opinion, complex motion type offense or motion principles, they have the advantage. But simpler, the more that fails and the simpler the game gets, the more the Cavs have the advantage. Reason number 3. In my opinion, Tristan Thompson is the biggest game wrecker in this series. Number 1, and we saw this against Boston. Boston at times had 3 defenders trying to box out Tristan Thompson to stop him from getting offensive rebounds. That much attention on a role player, even though I consider him a super role player, and that's another video that's going to come pretty soon, me discussing the top 10 super role players in the NBA. But having Tristan Thompson to dominate the boards, especially the offensive boards, and then it's not even that, to protect the rim, and then also his ability to switch out and guard quick guards on the perimeter makes him the biggest game wrecker in the series. The Warriors don't have anybody that can match what he can do. He can literally mess up everything, a lot of what the Golden State Warriors would do. So that's reason number 3 is Tristan Thompson and his game wrecking ability. So reason number 2 is my man Kyrie Irving and his ability to dominate the game just coming off of a simple screen. So one thing, I will point this out. He averaged 27 points in the final series last year. Why? He did a lot of work off of that little pick and roll, a little simple screen towards the top of the key. He comes off. Once you go, you have to fight over the screen because he's a great shooter. If you go under the screen, you basically giving him room to shoot a 3, which he'll nail almost every time. So most of the defenders go over the screen. I hope I didn't say that backwards. So when they do that, I notice Kyrie has his arm out, his left arm, kind of locking the defender behind him that's fighting over the screen. And in the meantime, they have that second defender in front. Now, depending on how that second defender plays him, determines what he does. Most of the time, Golden State last year, once he came off the screen, locked the defender behind him, they kind of backed off a little bit to stop him from going to the basket. That little 15, 17-foot jump shot he made, I promise he probably missed one, but I promise he really was so accurate with that freaking shot. I really don't think he missed more than 3 in the series. That's how accurate he was with that shot. So that's obviously devastating. If you bring that defender up, he'll take him to the basket, and we all know Kyrie Irving finishing at the rim is ridiculous. Like he can finish no matter what, the spins off the backboard, the up and under. He does a lot of crazy stuff to finish, and he's a great finisher when it comes to these layups at the basket. So you can't give him that, and you can't give. So he's basically impossible to guard, and that's how he dominates that game. The Golden State doesn't have an answer to how to defend him on the pick and roll. All right, moving on to reason number 1. Reason number 1 that Golden State will lose to the Cavaliers in the NBA Finals is LeBron James's dominance of the Warriors. He's been doing it the last 2 years, and there's no reason to believe that this year will be any different. All right? He's just too big, number 1, too strong, too fast, and too wise. And I say wise because, basketball IQ is the thing. I mean, anybody can have basketball IQ. All you got to do is understand the game, understand the situations on the court, understand the plays. All that stuff comes together to make your basketball IQ. But what happens when you have an advanced basketball IQ and then you've been around the game? You played all these teams countless times at this point. You've been in the game 14 years. You've seen coaches come and go. You've seen players come and go. You've seen everything under the sun. You've seen playbook after playbook after playbook. You know everything. All these coaches, you know their playbooks. You know everything they're gonna try to do. You know how they're gonna try to defend you. That's wisdom. At this point, it's not basketball IQ anymore. It's basketball wisdom, and that's what LeBron James has at this point. All right, he's too big. He can go. KD can't guard him. He'll put him in a post. Draymond can't guard him. He's too fast for Draymond, and he'll put him in a post. You can't put Clay on him. He's too big for Clay. You can't put Zaza Pachulia on him. He's too quick for. So it's just a bad matchup. One visual I can never get out of my head is Harrison Barnes trying to guard LeBron. It was if you ever want to see somebody get ragdolled in the NBA, is that. And not that Harrison Barnes is a bad player. I actually like Harrison Barnes a lot. I think he brings a lot to the table. But he just wasn't big enough. And there's not a lot of people. Draymond is going to try, but he's going to be unsuccessful. KD, we already seen what he'll do to KD. Even though KD does score a lot and may have the ability to wear him down defensively a little bit, but he's going to dominate this team as he's done the past 2 years. Another thing to notice about KD, if you think KD is going to be the savior of the Warriors, KD's record against LeBron is like 5-20 something. Like he's one, and the fifth one came this year. Kevin Durant is not the person with with the answer to LeBron. Now that team is going to be tough and be great for years to come, but this year they're going to lose the NBA Finals, and LeBron will win his fourth, and Cleveland will win their second title. That's my video. Let me know if you disagree with my points. If you agree, whatever the case may be, leave a comment, subscribe. All right? See you next time.